So the question now remains is, who regulates alcohol today? Well, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, also known as the TTB, has the primary jurisdiction over alcohol beverages in regard to things like excise taxes, labeling, formulation, licensing, advertising and social media, trade practices, American viticultural areas, all things we'll be talking a lot about today. There's also the Federal Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA. I'm sure many of you have heard about it before. They have some authority over beverage alcohol, not primary, but they do have some in regard to food safety issues, concerns about whether the product is adulterated, whether someone can get sick if they consume the product. There's something called GRAS, G-R-A-S, which means generally recognized as safe, and that pertains a lot to ingredients, usage of ingredients, how much of an ingredient can be used in order to be safe for consumers. And then, of course, there's something called FDA Food Facility Registration, which is a requirement under the 2002 Bioterrorism Act, where wineries, breweries, and distilleries that are located within the U.S. are required to be registered with the FDA, as are any facilities that are processing, packaging, or holding food products, also known as beverage alcohol, to consumers within the U.S. And this is also a requirement for international companies with some restrictions. And in case you think that's a lot of regulations, it's certainly not the end of the regulation of beverage alcohol in the United States. There's also customs, and this applies a lot to imported beer, wine, and spirits. They have to go through customs. They have to be cleared by customs. They need to have some sort of label approval. Customs will look at. Customs also collects excise taxes upon importation on bottled products. There is a requirement of country of origin marking to be on the packaging and the labels of beverage alcohol. There's also the Federal Trade Commission, which we'll be talking about briefly today. It deals a lot with false and/or deceptive advertising, consumer class actions. Department of Agriculture, USDA, deals primarily with organic labeling. If you're promoting your product as organic, 100% organic, made with organic ingredients, then you have to answer to the USDA. USPTO is for trademark, and GIs, geographical indications, which we will briefly discuss today, and of course state agencies, as we've sort of spelled out for you. States also have governing authority over beverage alcohol, so it's a very, very complicated system. But we're going to focus a lot today on the TTB, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, because that's the agency that has primary federal authority over beverage alcohol in the United States. We also deal a lot hand in hand with the TTB, so we think that this is a really, really great place for us to start and to talk about today. So their governing agency is actually the Department of Treasury. So they're part of the Department of Treasury predominantly because they do collect a lot of excise taxes on beverage alcohol. They were previously known as the BATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, but under the Homeland Security Act, it was restructured so that they were renamed and kind of reoriented a bit. Their power derives from an act called the Federal Alcohol Administration Act, which is 27 U.S.C. sections 201 through 211, and they also have some sort of power from the Internal Revenue Code, Chapter 51, sections 5001 through 5691, and that's mostly for taxation purposes, but as we'll get into a little bit more. And their jurisdiction is in interstate commerce. Anything you want to add? Okay.
Through these quick.
Okay. So their federal regulations are codified in 27 CFR, and they apply to everything from basic permits, wine labeling and advertising, spirits labeling and advertising, tied house issues, malt beverage labeling and advertising, exclusive outlets, American viticultural areas, commercial bribery, consignment sales, foreign geographic names of significance, labeling proceedings, the famous health warning that you see on almost all, or certainly all, beverage alcohol products, drawback on tax paid distilled spirits, production of volatile fruit flavored concentrate, distilled spirit plants, again, pertaining mostly to licensing, distribution use of denatured alcohol rum, formulas, distribution of tax-free alcohol, licensing of wine, beer, liquors, and articles from Puerto Rico, importation, exportation, stills, miscellaneous regulations, gauging manual. So they really, really have a very broad authority over the regulation of beverage alcohol.